In Chapter 12, early morning, Gatria's group left Count Sala's residence without so much of a breakfast. The queen did not offer any explanation for their haste departure, and Count Salas did not dare ask. Count Salas wanted to implore on the queen to stay and save Belrac, but he couldn't even get the word out of his mouth as he watched them leave. He felt he had no right to ask for the queen's help. He felt ashamed. On behalf of his race, he wanted to offer his sincerest apology, but he felt like it would mean nothing to Queen Gatria. He had no full knowledge of what had transpired, only snippets of it from Lord Trevin, but he could tell how bad it was. He had seen the glint in the queen's eyes, the disgust and distrust in their depths, whenever her gaze landed on a human. But even though Her Highness distrusted them, she still healed the citizen and his son. Maybe there's still hope for us. Maybe if we atone, we will be given a chance. Dear, the letter in your hand. Count Salas looked down at his hand when he heard the voice of his wife, Adelpha, beside him, reminding him of the letter he received earlier. It was a letter from Her Highness. Lord Trevin handed it to him before their group left. He said it was a letter from Queen Gatria made from her own essence. This could be our punishment or our salvation. Count Salas carefully opened it as he calmed his anxiety-filled heart. However, the uneasy feeling was soothed as he read the content of the letter word after word. Count Salas, I acknowledge your sincerity to save your home and your people. However, Belrac will continue to be a barren land as the dead soil could never be restored by my essence alone. For the time being, it cannot be saved. That is why, for the meantime, I advise you to leave Belrac and relocate to Adral. Show them this letter and you will be accepted together with your people. I do not trust your race, but if you become part of Adral, then you will be part of my people. And I, Queen Gatria Valen Balsatra, vow that I will not let my people die the second time. The decision is yours. Suddenly, he felt hope from the wretched distress they were in. Gently, Count Salas closed his eyes and took a peaceful, deep breath. Underneath his eyelids was his unshed tears filled with hope and relief. Dear Father, the letter, Father. Count Salas calmed his exuberant heart and turned to face his family with a relaxed smile. Her Highness had given us an option. The barren land will continue being infertile, and it will not be restored anytime soon. However, I believe that Her Highness would someday breathe life into the barren land. That is why I am planning to accept Her Highness's offer. And what is the offer, dear? Adelpha asked. Move to Adral for the time being and be part of Her Highness's people. Count Salas had a proud expression on his face. We will be part of the mistress of nature's subject. Isn't that wonderful? His eyes were filled with reverence. My forefather would give anything to be in my position right now. Her Highness did not abandon us. Adelpha put her palm over her heart while smiling serenely. I'm so glad. Count Salas nodded, yes. That is why we have to treasure this offer. The kingdom will label us as traitors, but I do not care. They abandoned Belrac in times of need. Who says we couldn't do the same to the kingdom? I will prepare our people thoroughly, Father, said Salva. He knew that the queen's offer was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Then I will prepare for our travel, said Adelpha, whose smile never left her face. I will help too, Mother, said Salome. Everyone nodded at one another before going to their separate ways to do their respective tasks. Traveling in the air, sitting on a dragon's back, would be a dream to many, but to Gatria it was close to being a nightmare. She disliked height. And now adding Drago's speed, she did not dare move her head or look down. Gatria wouldn't deny the beauty she could see from above, but she couldn't also deny her fear of heights. Even Astrid couldn't force her to fly before. She had been on Drago's back for hours now, but she was still not used to the height and speed. Gatria thought that a time where she would appreciate heights would never come. You've gone stiff. Are you okay? Gatria was startled when she suddenly heard Drago's voice in her head. Then she remembered the first time he showed her his dragon form. He spoke in her mind at that time as well. I dislike heights. She heard Drago's low chuckle in her head. Be at ease, I'm not going to drop you. It's not about that. Thunder rumbled in the sky. Gatria stilled at the thunderous sound and looked up. She felt her hair rose at the sound, and her instinct was telling her that it was not a normal thunder. She turned to check on Trevin and Grath behind her who were riding Vago. When her eyes met Trevin, it seemed that they thought the same about the thunder. Gatria signaled Trevin to fly low, which he immediately followed. However, when she was about to tell Drago to do the same, a burst of lightning struck down from the sky. Hold on, Gatria heard Drago's calm voice in her head, but it was too late for her to act as she was told. Drago's body tilted to escape the burst of lightning that was aiming for his wings, and in doing so, the unprepared Gatria slipped down and fell. Gatria, Drago's calm voice was replaced by panic and fear when he saw Gatria's body plummeting to the ground at a terrifying speed. For the first time in a long time, he cussed as he rapidly flew down to reach Gatria. But lightning struck again, burning his left wing. Drago discarded the searing pain and the blood spurting from his wound and continued flying down. Gatria, vines. Gatria forcefully tucked away her fear of heights as she fell and twisted her body in midair to face Drago, who was rapidly flying down to reach her. Vines made from her essence speedily wrapped around her wrists and hands while rapidly extending toward Drago, who accelerated even more to meet her vines. As the vine reached Drago, a burst of lightning struck Drago's wings again. But before it burned his dragon skin, Drago transformed back to his human form to escape the strike. And then he grabbed the vine, pulled it up with frightful strength to meet Gatria midway, and immediately wrapped his arms around her to protect her from the lightning that was about to strike again. Idiot, Gatria muttered under her breath after seeing that Drago would block the lightning with his body to keep her safe. I can take care of myself. I know, Drago replied as he secured Gatria in his arms. Gatria slipped her arm around Drago's waist and used her vine to cut her palm. Then with her blood of Nadir, she surrounded and caged them with thick vines covered with her blood for sturdiness as preparation for the lightning strike and their inevitable fall. Just as she finished securing themselves inside the round vines that not even light could penetrate, she felt the whole cage shook as lightning finally struck, plummeting them to the ground. And as the round vine cage slammed on the dry land, the force of the lightning smashing them to the ground made Gatria cough up blood. Gatria, I'm fine. She immediately undid the round vine cage she made when the lightning disappeared, and with her essence, she summoned her sword. Seeing that Drago was wounded and bleeding, Gatria put herself in front of Drago as if protecting him before she looked up at the sky, ready for another lightning strike attack. But it didn't come. The sky just rumbled thunderously until the low rumbling disappeared together with the thick murderous intent. It was as if the lightning strike only stopped by to greet them. Who was that? Trevin asked no one as he and Grath went running toward Gatria and Drago. The two landed on the ground far away from Gatria and Drago, so Trevin couldn't use his soul shard to protect the two. The distance were too far away for his soul shard to reach. Damn it, profanities flew from Trevin's mouth as he ran. He was furious. Who the fuck was that? Trevin pushed his feet to run faster. When he finally neared Gatria, he crushed the crystal in his hand. The small shards immediately surrounded him, Grath, Gatria, and Drago, forming a transparent shield around them. Gatria. Trevin's worry doubled when he saw blood on the corner of Gatria's lips. Then his eyes fell on the wounded dragon in human form beside her. What happened? Who was that? It was his most asked question that day. Gatria was still looking at the sky. I don't know. It was a foreign presence that suddenly appeared above the clouds. Not sensing that foreign presence anymore and feeling safer with Trevin's soul shard around them, she withdrew her sword and turned to look at Drago's state. Her worry slightly lessened when she saw him standing upright as if unharmed. You're bleeding. It'll heal. I'm a dragon, Drago responded nonchalantly. Just give me a few hours to recuperate. I can heal you, Gatria argued. Don't bother, save your essence. Gatria knew Drago was right. She couldn't sense any essence in this barren land. She had to be ready in case they would get attacked again. She shouldn't keep relying on her blood of Nadir. She'd be weakened immediately. She faced Trevin and Grath. How are you two? She asked. Did the lightning strike you? Grath shook his head. It seems like the lightning's target were only Her Highness and Drago. Drago's face was impassive as he looked at the blood in the corner of Gatria's lips. Then his hand reached out to wipe off the blood. You're hurt. And you're wounded and bleeding. She pointed at him while roaming her eyes around the barren land, searching for a place where Drago could rest. It's just a scratch, Drago argued calmly as if he was not bleeding and wounded. I've had worse. There's a large cave from where we landed, Trevin informed Gatria and Drago. We can take shelter there for a while. Gatria nodded and dragged the unwilling to rest Drago toward the cave after Trevin led the way while Grath guarded the rear. Drago couldn't pull his hand away from Gatria's hold. He was not a weak dragon. He could still fly and fight if necessary, but knowing Gatria's nature, which was to prioritize healing and life, she probably wouldn't let him fly in his state. You can leave me here, said Drago after everyone entered the cave. I'll follow once I've recuperated. Gatria nodded and Drago felt his heart sank, but Gatria's next words stunned him. Trevin, Grath, you leave before us with Vago, Gatria ordered. The target of that lightning was me and Drago, so it'll be safe for you two to travel ahead of us. Trevin wanted to shout hell no at Gatria, but he knew this was not the time to be overprotective of her. Gatria was the mistress of nature. She's one of the strongest beings in Azatura. He knew she could protect herself and would not easily crumble in the presence of a moonlight stone, thanks to King Turak's enchanted cloak. Not to mention the dragon was also with her. Even wounded, Trevin knew Drago could fight if necessary. All he could offer was defense. After seeing that lightning strike, he knew his soul shard would break after only 3 strikes. As it was that strong, it would be best to do what he did best, information gathering. In addition, it would be an advantage to them if they arrived in Ager early. He had things to prepare before they could get Gatria's war regalia. Not to mention a certain warlord would be there, waiting for Gatria. Therefore, Trevin agreed with Gatria and silently summoned his wyvern, Vago, out from the enchanted animal bead. Let's go, Grath. Our harmonious journey checking forests and vegetation is over, Trevin said as he rode Vago. Time to do our work. Grath was reluctant to leave the mistress of nature, but he received his order clearly. He left with Trevin, leaving alone a dragon and a queen in a large cave. Transform to your dragon form, curl up on the ground and rest. Gatria spoke to Drago strictly after Trevin and Grath. I'll heal you. Drago's eyebrows furrowed, but before he could stop Gatria, her sharp, cold gaze pinned him. The faster you recover, the faster we can leave. You're my ride, and I have no plans to leave you behind and change mount. You're all I have in this barren land, so cooperate with me. Drago was quiet for a short while before silently transforming into his dragon form and obediently curling up on the ground with half of his wings spread to expose his wound to Gatria. Gatria immediately approached Drago. The moment her hands hovered over his wound, a light green hue surrounded it, and Drago felt a familiar warmth penetrate his skin without pain as if it was soothing him. The light green hue was warm. It gave off the feeling of tenderness, kindness, and compassion. Drago couldn't see his wounds because of the light, but he knew his wound was closing. His gaze landed on Gatria, who was focused on healing him. Her expression was stiff due to extreme concentration. Healing humans and other races was different from healing a dragon. Dragons possessed insurmountable vitality. That was why when they were wounded, it would take triple, even quadruple amount of healing essence to fix them. The normal sorcerer blessed by the mistress of nature couldn't accomplish such a feat. It would take a large amount of essence to heal a dragon, and in the whole Azatura, only Gatria had that huge amount of essence to spare. You look pale. That's enough. Gatria discarded Drago's words and responded, "Shut up and accept my essence." Drago knew firsthand how stubborn Gatria could be. He let her be, hoping that she would not weaken herself for his sake. And so the healing continued. Seconds, minutes, and hours passed. Gatria's essence continued to heal Drago's wound. When the wound finally healed, Gatria used a vine she created from her essence and made a small cut on the tip of her forefinger. She let a single drop of blood fell to Drago's closed wound and watched the blood seep through his skin as if it was being absorbed. In just a few breaths after Gatria used her blood of Nadir, Drago suddenly felt revitalized, as if he did not get wounded at all and lose a lot of blood. It was full recovery. Drago's golden eyes stared at Gatria with awe. He knew she was amazing, but to experience her power himself, he was awestruck. What? Gatria, who was leaning against his thigh, resting after healing him, inquired after seeing how Drago looked at her. Drago wanted to tell Gatria she was amazing, but she might have heard it countless times already. So instead, he said, Gatria nodded and leaned back against Drago's large dragon body with her eyes closed. A few seconds later, Gatria's breathing became deep and even. Now that she was asleep, Drago was free to stare at Gatria's face. Even since he met her centuries ago, he had only seen Gatria's swordsmanship. She had never displayed her mistress of nature's power. She would always fight with her sword and would always choose not to use her power in combat. That was the reason the mistress of nature's ability was unknown to most in Azatura. They only knew her unequaled healing capabilities and, of course, the strength of her blood. However, no one had seen the extent of her powers. No one really knew what she could do. He only had seen a small fraction of her powers. Her ability to know the state of Azatura through the soil, her ability to sense the life of the forest, and her ability to communicate with forest dwellers' spirits. These were just a small portion of what she could do. He had lived for so long that he was considered an ancient being, but he had never been interested in someone as much as Gatria. A low chuckle vibrated on his chest because of his emotional immaturity before he closed his eyes and spread his aura inside and outside the cave to warn any predator not to try anything. Fortunately, no monster dared to near the cave until Gatria woke up from her sleep. Awake, a low, deep voice reached Gatria's ear from behind. Still feeling groggy, Gatria blinked and softly rubbed her eyes. After a few breaths, Only then she realized that she was not leaning on a dragon anymore, but on firm, muscular arms and chest. She stiffened at the realization before she calmed down and looked at Drago over her shoulder. Why are you in your human forms? She inquired calmly as she pushed herself to stand. I'm not soft when I'm in my dragon form. I'm afraid that you'll get a stiff neck. Gatria frowned at him. Those muscles are not soft either. The corner of Drago's lips twitched up. It's a little softer than my dragon scales. You're big when you're in your dragon form. Dragos held back his smile. I'm still big in my human form. A different meaning of big flashed in Gatria's mind. She cleared her throat and looked outside the cave to hide what she just thought about. It's already dark. She changed the subject. Dragons had night vision, right? Drago finally stood and reached his hand to fix Gatria's messy hair before answering, yes, I have. Let's go. Gatria nodded silently and quietly rode on Drago's back after he transformed to his dragon form outside the cave. Under the starless and moonless night, an ancient dragon carrying a queen passed the barren land and entered the town of Kastatava. It's only a matter of days before the mistress of nature reached the capital of the kingdom of Tredera Ager. Her retribution will soon commence. CECELIBCC